room says he's still waiting at the gate. He's been sitting there.
Yeah.
That happened to us a couple months ago. We were just sat there.
Just sitting there forever,
I
yeah.
was like, well, you got a backpack full of snacks.
Yeah.
It really does.
You can see it. Well, they're doing well.
Parking got cheaper downtown, the code.
If you get in before 9, I mean, after 7, before 9, and you're out by like between
So
5
it's
and 6.
7.
Yeah, I got in at 4, so.
Why do you get 4?
What about, did you spot here?
No, I just had a huge project and I just knew it was gonna be bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I got in quickly, I got in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Danielle, how's everything going in your house?
Everything's good, thanks, yeah,
Kids are doing well in school?
yeah, kids are doing well.
Oh, yeah, good point.
You know, they got some rain, classes were canceled, they gave them all bags of food and things like that, but it wasn't as bad. So,
But I think
They did
you
okay.
sure is the category 1 or maybe even a 2.
yeah,
Are you
yeah.
trying to get any?
So, and now there's a
To my email.
new hurricane, it shouldn't impact,
Oh.
All right, I will call the meeting of the New Trier Township Decennial Committee to order at 7:31 PM. Madam Deputy Clerk, will you please call the roll? And here's the list.
Let's go through, Supervisor Gail Eisenberg,
Yes, yes,
Assessor Jan Churchwell. Yeah. Clerk Jerome Hoynes,
not present.
Trustee Danielle Rubin,
here,
Trustee Elliot Robbins.
Here,
Trustee K. Cassell McNally,
Here.
Administrator Lucretia Hopkins, that would be me. Victoria McDonough of Winnetka is not going to be here.
Not
Peter
present.
Tyre of Winnetka. Stacy Worley of Wilmette. And not present as of. And Kylie Rudd of Glencoe is not going to be present.
Okay.
And I am present.
And Stefan is not on this list, but Stefan Moser trustee.
Unless you're masquerading as one of the other Mrs.
Oops, no, yes, he's right above Hopkins.
Oh, okay.
Oopsies, okay, all right, so now we switch pages. Okay, is there any public comment? Seeing none. We would be in line to review the minutes from April 30th meeting. We do not have the minutes. And as the clerk has not arrived, so I'd ask that we table the approval of the minutes. Is there such a motion?
so
All those in favor of tabling the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They are tabled. Let the record reflect that Stacy Worley is present. All right, the meat of today's meeting are the recommendations from our working groups. I want to thank everyone for really taking this role very seriously. I've heard from staff and from volunteers that, you know, the working groups have been very active throughout the office. So we'll go in turn. Just as a reminder of process, we will be taking these recommendations on for votes at the next meeting. At this meeting, simply a recitation of what was studied and what the recommendations from each working group are for inclusion in Decennial committee meeting report. Any questions on that?
When is the next meeting?
The next meeting,
October 23rd.
7:30.
it is.
Gail, are you gonna get into the surveys that you sent out as well?
Yes,
tonight?
that will be a part of our intergovernmental report.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when is this due again?
November like 8th, I believe it is, yes. Yep. So we can meet again after the October 23rd, but my endeavor is to have a final vote on the recommendations and finalize and send it off.
Okay.
Yep, good. All right,
Point of reference, Decennial is not the appropriate designation of 150 years.
10 years?
It's
We had assessment.
not Decennial.
No, I thought we're doing just
Doing
Decennial.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, every 10 years.
Decennial. Decennial.
Decennial.
Yeah.
I know, I know where he's going with it though. I think I speak his language.
This process is gonna happen every 10 years.
Theoretically, there's already bills.
Yeah.
Really?
Both making it more cumbersome and less, so we'll see which one wins. Well, potentially none of us will see which one of these wins in 10 years. So, all right, we will start with the food pantry operations working group to provide us with their recommendations. Who would like to present? Since Victoria's not here, I assume that means Stacy does.
Sure, well, actually, everybody got a copy of our
Yes.
notes. Danielle was gracious enough to step in and help with this.
Fabulous.
So it's because it's nice to have somebody to work with. So we started, I'll just kind of give you an overall process. We talked to Brian quite a bit, talked to Larisha. Also talked to Julie at the Northfield Pantry, just to kind of get a lay of the land. And please feel free to add, you know, whenever you want. And so we kind of just talked through, we broke it up to kind of what's working well, areas that need improvement, and then our recommendations. So overall, I know that they've automated the pantry system now, and so that seems to be working quite well, giving people a little bit more choice. Staff has been more comfortable with checking client bags, helping with cost control. Regular sourcing sounds good. Partnerships are, you know, seems to be working pretty well. With the exception of the Greater Food Depository, that seems to be the one major issue. Local suppliers like Eva Deans have been donating. I know he works with Julie to get bread quite a bit. Pantry pals have been very helpful. Newsletters, seems to have been good as far as at least putting in the requests for what people are looking for, or what the pantry's looking for. And then his food drives that are kind of more in the summer to help with everything. Areas that need improvement, space limitations, inventory tracking, shopping, staffing, insufficient staff. It seems like he's had some problems. I think you might have had the conversation with him about this, or Larisha, about leading to gaps in managing the checkout process and assisting people like on the weekends. Okay. And then another issue is the personal vehicles, where he's using his own car, Brian's using his own car. And the pantry pals don't typically work on the weekend, which is when he has the food drive. So, because they could help a little bit. And so that seems to be a little bit of an issue. And then the lack of support from the Greater Chicago Food Depository. I did get a good name and number from Julie, because Brian, it didn't match up with who Brian's been in touch with, so maybe that could be
Try
helpful.
again. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am a fan of not giving up. And then just the food shortages, you know, seasonal food shortages. When the schools are out and churches are, you know, everybody's sort of kind of on holiday around here in the summer. And then more collaboration with, you know, even more schools and churches and community organizations. So overall recommendations on the last page. expand the pantry space. So I think that's a, potentially could be a good idea. I know Julie's got a nice new space over there, which I really do want to go see that to kind of compare. Cause I know that it's a different, they're building that out and it's gonna be ready probably in the spring. Inventory management, like RevTrack to track purchases and distributions, I think would be helpful. Full-time pantry role, which would be separate from other responsibilities, like the agency funding, hire an administrative assistant. I feel like that's kind of a theme throughout. In another area I talked to Larisha, I feel like that could be helpful, even if it's just a part-time person. But to help with errands, like Costco runs, passport help, thorough hiring process to make sure that whoever does fill, I know Brian's gonna retire soon, just to make sure it's a good fit. So sort of where the pantry's going. Start Thanksgiving efforts early, the vehicle for pantry operations. I know could be fraught with like lots of different issues, such as like insurance and liability and the expense for like how much it's actually really used. I feel like that would take you'd probably want a little more analysis on that to see if it really does make sense. Honestly, I don't know why there's other resources around here if somebody could share, but I know there's a lot of intricacies to all of it.
With another agency.
Yeah. And I have contacted a few other governments who told me no, but.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it just seems like that's.
But like you said, keep trying.
Yeah, I just don't know that it makes sense to purchase your own vehicle because of, again, the liability, the insurance, the expense. But I do think that would be beneficial based on what, we heard. And then just getting somebody in with that GCFD. I don't know, I actually want to try because I feel like
The more people.
it kind of makes me crazy. I'm like, really? He's not getting any response? So I was like, all right, let me try that. And then just community engagement. Actually, when we talked to Melanie, we weren't sure quite what was going on as far as like the communication style. So we got a little more clarification on what she does. And just maybe use text blasts or post weekly, the needs. And then actually Danielle had a really good idea about putting in the nice weather, putting a board out there. When people, and I think as Winnetka kind of revitalizes, when people are out and about more often, they could see that, and especially when they're with their kids, I feel like that kind of, helps engage the children and people like that. And then the volunteer program, if you could actually get the pantry pals for some weekend shifts, that could be really helpful. And then again, just sort of reassessing vehicle needs, which I mentioned earlier, and then broaden partnerships with neighboring pantries to share, just like he's sharing already with Julie. But it seems like they have a nice working relationship, and maybe there's some other pantries that it could work, depending on who gets access of what.
Absolutely.
And the location. So that's kind of very high level, but.
I think the only thing that I don't think was reviewed, and this is something that was done at the ARC when I volunteered there, and then also talking to a volunteer at the Wilmette food pantry, is possibly distributing food based on the size of the household. So if there are a lot of kids, then maybe they would get, more bread or more milk versus if it's a single person.
We talked about that because at Northfield, they do that. When Steve first started working here, I took him to Northfield and they divide out, say you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have a card and it says, this is what you can take. Here, everybody can take the same amount. And I do think it would be a good idea for us to at one point implement, hey, you're a single person household, so this is what you can take. It would be a huge overhaul, but for our costs, it would be extremely beneficial, for everybody to kind of shop according to what they need in the household.
Wonderful. Okay.
Do you remember how it's established and how it's, what, like any any updates to, if a child moves, goes to college or, somebody moves out of the household, something like that. Do you have any recollection of how ARC dealt with that?
Yeah, so the way the ARC was structured was that the client would need to meet with the social worker first. And they would, whether it was every 2 weeks or on a monthly basis, and then they would assess their needs based on their family dynamic. And they would basically give a grocery list to the client to then give to the volunteers. And the volunteers, and we talked a lot about this, the volunteers would then pack the food for the client. But, there's that mix of, wanting the client to have autonomy,
Some agency.
right?
So,
So,
Well, and it was interesting because Northfield doesn't require any proof that you need to use the pantry. They just kind of say, in general, people aren't gonna show up. It's kind of been Julie's experience. So it's just ironic that they eliminated that and just said, hey, show up. And she says they really haven't had any issues of people taking advantage of it.
So what's interesting is during COVID, we did away with checking need because we figured there were a lot of people who it wasn't gonna show up in their last tax return, right? It was gonna be a more immediate need.
Right.
And we re-implemented it only recently, the financial requirements. We did see a drop. So there were people who would not have met the financial requirements.
Oh,
who
that
were
were using it.
Mhm.
Oh, interesting.
Same with we rechecked everyone's residency requirements. We had a few people who also dropped.
She
would
does
move out of the
require,
township.
she does require the residency.
Yeah.
Which I think is.
So we do get
that
a
is
lot of
important.
Evanston people since they don't have a pantry. So
Interesting.
they try at least once or twice before we.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
there any conversation or discussion about sources of food? And what I'm referring to is dealing with wholesalers. Mitch from the last committee was very much in favor of trying to hook the township up with different wholesale proprietors so that we could get it cheaper at that level. I was wondering if there was any conversations or thought about that.
We talked about, I think it was Top Box, that he sources a lot of the meat and they get a nice discount from that. That's from, Chris Kennedy. He started that in Kenilworth. So it's close. They actually deliver. But as far as wholesalers, I didn't know, talk to Brian about that. But we did talk about different, like where he's getting everything, and he feels like the Grand's super supportive, they're nice and close, they give him a discount.
But a discount on retail is completely different
Yeah,
than a wholesale.
yeah,
Well,
exactly,
and brand retail is different from literally everybody else's retail.
exactly.
And we did discourage, we were buying almost entirely from Grand for a while until we told them to stop. So, and started getting a lot more Costco and Amazon.
Yeah, and Amazon has limits, we did talk about that, you can only get so much from Amazon. No, they probably would be worth exploring, I think it's just getting, I mean, even if like the new person can get. Some other pantries besides Julie, just to get a take on sort of how they're handling things, and maybe there's some synergies there.
One of the things that's special about Grand is they've been so supportive of our food drives.
Right.
I mean, it's a wonderful partnership there and,
Yeah,
if we should throw some business their way, they should have some niche where their prices are competitive.
We do get all of our vegetables from them
And the dairy comes
in
from
dairy,
So-
yeah, 'cause it's
It's also the ownership, so it's not the
Yeah.
same game.
right,
Yeah.
sounds-
very much.
yeah,
Yeah, all right, I appreciate it, and like I said, we'll vote at the next meeting. I will say that I will send out these recommendations if anybody wants written commentary, wants to provide written commentary, we'll do this as if we were, a Federal Register. Get your comments in. All right, so our next committee, working group, the records retention, cyber and digitization.
That is the group that I worked in with Jerome and Victoria. Victoria and I actually had another Zoom call last night about cybersecurity because she works for Morgan Stanley, so she works with cybersecurity quite often. I'll do the cybersecurity portion first and then get into kind of the records and retentions part. As far as our cybersecurity is concerned, I feel like we're doing better probably than we ever have here. It used to not even be a thing for us to be concerned about cybersecurity. HTML Global has a very specific focus on cybersecurity. I do get an asset report every month saying how we're performing, have we had any incidents? It literally comes to me every 30 to 31 days. So if there are incidents, they would get on the phone with me, but I get a risk assessment from them every single month. So we're good with that. The staff and everyone here goes through cybersecurity training yearly. I go through a management training. We have our ongoing cybersecurity trainings that you can also take, which are very short, but also very informative too, about clicking links, about phishing and stuff like that. So I feel like we're in a really good place there. Also, getting rid of the written down passwords and stuff like that. I had a lunch and learn with the staff last year, where we all sat down and talked about cybersecurity and, keeping your passwords private. Now we have multi-factor authentication too. So we're really stepping our game up as far as, doing better with our cybersecurity, and we haven't had any incidents since I've been administrator. So we're doing well with that.
Can I ask a question? Just, if somebody, you mentioned the training, if somebody did actually, do you ever send out fake emails and then to the employees and see if they actually would click? My company does this, actually. I think it's a great idea, and I actually have gotten caught where I was like, they were like, oh, package is gonna get delivered. And I was like, no, I'm not home.
Yeah.
Right? And I clicked it, and they were like, you have to take a 10-minute, this was a bad link, so I just one of those where it's not a big deal, but it just sort of is a real experience.
Yeah, we definitely had some link clicking.
Okay.
With banks and, stuff like that. We do report those incidences to HTML Global, but that's actually a good practice to do, to send out, the
Real,
the
that's when it's good, where you're like, you're busy working,
And
that's when,
catch it,
yeah,
right?
you catch it.
Yeah, that is a good idea. For the records and retention, not everybody here knows, but recently we got rid of 2,000 pounds of paper out of the basement. The need for digitization, I don't feel like is there, because we house a lot of our information on our website. And what we do need to keep, it would probably be a very small digitization project for like the clerk's office to organize those files and things. But with everything else, we're already doing the digital check-in for the pantry, which was a big focus of our meeting when we met the first time. And we are about to start putting all of the PII inside of Visual GA for all of the clients as well, so that we're not housing so much paper. That's gonna be a focus of mine, to train the employees on that within the next month here, before we really get crazy into the holidays. The Visual GA people from NJS Enterprises taught me how to do it, and it's not difficult. We've been trying to, we have our pantry clients sign in at the front, and they originally have been going through a take-in process with Brian where they were writing down things. There's really no privacy there, so really writing down might be the best thing, so that people are not telling people their information. But we are about to start housing even more of our pantry client information in Visual GA, because it has way more capability than what we've been using it for.
Have you guys thought at all about having there be like an ongoing shredding, like not like a shredder, but I've been to companies before where they have what looks like a big recycling can, but it's locked. And we could have, as we're starting to go through things that are going onto Visual GA, you just, take the thing that no longer needs to be in, hard copy, and then put it in the shredding, container, so that once every, however, frequently we need, somebody can come and take it and shred it so that it's like an ongoing process. It may end up being like a visual reminder to us in, the building that, we're trying to kind of move, more things, so that it can be more secured.
Yeah, so I've talked to Paper Tiger about this and they do charge us a fee for that. We actually have another shredding coming up here just for the employee records. On October 7th. I try to do that like quarterly for us to get rid of more stuff. They'll come in for us, pick it up, and then they shred it on their site so that we don't have to pay the fee to keep it here. We do have multiple shredders around the office for stuff that we don't need to keep either. Like I get rid of the Diet-A-Ride coupons, but we're also going to get rid of Diet-A-Ride coupons, period. So, and go to the card system. Just trying to move into the digital age slowly but surely. With Cab Connect, that's another one of our things that we're gonna be having coming up here soon. Hopefully by the beginning of the fiscal year is what I'm aiming for. So we we're not recommending the digitization at this time because I think that we have like a $25,000 line item for digitization. So right now, I feel like we can save that money and just put everything into our Illinois records. They give us the approval certificate and then we can send it to Paper Tiger to get rid of it. A lot of it, we don't need to keep more than 2 years. I think the max is maybe 10. And that might be for some of Jerome's records, which we could digitize in-house really ourselves.
You have scanners that you would digitize with, is that how you do it?
We have a scanner on our large copier downstairs. And a couple of employees have scanners at their desks too.
Then where would it be stored? Like, what kind of system do you have as far as filing that? Like personal information?
For when if we digitize.
Yeah.
So I've been talking to HTML Global about this to try to find something that we can store locally, or sometimes they have things that are cloud-based, like our QuickBooks is cloud-based.
Okay.
Something that all of us can access with a login, that's not gonna cost us an arm and a leg.
Right.
It would certainly be cheaper than the digitization that we were gonna do before, like with another company. So I'm investigating that now too.
Nice, okay.
Got it. Okay, so this is what I got from your presentation as far as recommendations. Send out fake phishing link tests to test whether training is sinking in. Store client data in visual GA rather than relying on paper records. Implement a records retention policy. Implement quarterly paper shredding. Switch from Dial-A-Ride coupons to credit card system through Cab Connect. Utilize in-house digitization rather than a vendor. Complete conversion of all forms and applications to digital forms. Continue to post all non-private government documents to website.
Mhm.
Did anyone else hear any other recommendations? Great. Okay.
You're really putting your typing skills to the test today.
All right. Well, it was really helpful when I could copy paste. Youth services, peer jury.
I'll take a stab at it. I think, if you summarize our report, we have, some important recommendations. The first one is that we believe that Haven is doing a wonderful job in their first year of taking over the Wilmette Warming House. We met with them, we've analyzed, the last couple of reports they've given. We're in the process of analyzing their new request, and they've done a great job with Warming House, and I think, of course, the pandemic hit and it decimated the youth attending both at the Warming House and at the EO in Winnetka, and both those agencies had difficulty. But we think Haven's doing a great job, and about 3 weeks ago, Haven successfully launched their plan to take over in lieu of the EO, a field house in Winnetka through a partnership with the Winnetka Park District. They're trying to step into the void created by the absence of EO, and they're exporting their model, their warming house model, to this this field house. And this is the one that's located in the Indian Hill Park, right by the New Trier East High School. It's about a block away. It's along the tracks there, and they opened it up about 3 weeks ago. And they have in fact submitted a request for some significant, for 30,000 in additional funding. which is gonna be designated for, the overhead of expanding the program there. We wanna carefully analyze, the committee recommends that we carefully analyze the request, that they come in with attendance records to show in, you know, in black and white, what they've accomplished over the last year at the warming house. So one of our recommendations, of course, is to explore and to support their effort to expand their program in lieu of the absence of the Yale and Winnetka. Another recommendation is that, and I think Stefan can chime in on this, that in years past, we'd have to go back a good couple of decades. We allowed youth members of the community to participate in township government. And they would attend board meetings from time to time, and they would chime in. I'm not sure they were voting members, but they certainly would participate, and they would give us the youth perspective, the perspective of adolescents and teenagers in the township about some of the programming that the township was behind. And I think it would be invaluable. I think we should recommend that we go back and explore past history, how we had the youth involved. And I think a wonderful a group that we could draw from would be the Youth Leadership Committee that is under Haven's control of the Wilmette Warming House. Haven has a youth leadership committee that they put in place. They're very big in spreading the word. The warming house is up and running. We're gonna carry that model to Winnetka. We're up and running. We would need people to attend. This is a great place where adolescents can come after school. They can get mentoring. They can get homework assistance. They can bake. They can do recreational things. Especially for if we have youth at risk or wayward youth that have time on their hands. These are great facilities for them to go to when they have extra time and they need a little bit of help. Whether it's with socialization, whether it's with homework, whether they just need some assistance in dealing with some of the difficulties of being a teenager in these communities. We think that Haven is in good shape to fill the void that were created by the loss of those two agencies. Another recommendation is that we feel that the process in place, the committee process, the funding process is really, really sound, that it's a good check and balance in line with the statute that we're all dealing with here. We want to make sure that each youth agency that we provide funding for is innovative, that they're not duplicating services, and that the township taxpayers are getting value for the dollars that are being designated to these agencies. And we think that the committee funding process that we have in place here, we reviewed it, we think it's really, really effective. We think it's a wonderful process, and we think it's a safeguard to protect against duplication and to protect against excessive funding. We think that the Glecko Youth Agency is doing a wonderful job, and we recommend that the township continue to fund that agency as well as Haven on an annual basis, of course, carefully reviewing the requests that are made. We think in a general sense that the youth agencies are doing a good job, and that we should keep an open mind about funding additional agencies like this new program that they're asking for in Winnetka. With regard to peer jury, there's been some discussion about whether or not peer jury, because of declining caseload, whether or not it's still a good worthwhile process. We call it restorative justice, and the answer was affirmatively yes, because number one, the value is there. It's completely a volunteer program. Youth advocates are volunteering. The township jurors that we're drawing jurors from the various high schools in the township, they're volunteering. The agencies that are the beneficiaries of the community service, they're all volunteering in terms of the feedback they give to Brian about how the youth are performing. The only overhead associated with the peer jury program is the peer jury scholarships that we give out from time to time. And the overhead that would be attributed to the one township staff member, in this case, Brian, who devotes some time to peer jury. But the rest of the program is absolutely a volunteer program. We also think that the decline in caseload is temporary. There's been a surge in cases. We recognize that we're competing with a couple of different, we've got a couple competitors for the cases. One of them is the administrative fine process that a lot of our municipalities have put in place. That's a way for municipalities to raise money, but we don't think the programs are as effective in terms of reducing recidivism and in terms of teaching the restorative justice lesson that peer jury can teach. We also think there's an opportunity with new police chiefs and new youth officers in at least two of our municipal entities, and we think it's incumbent, we recommend that, that Brian, as well as the youth advocates, get involved in speaking with the new chiefs when they come on, identifying the new youth officers when they come in, and presenting a program to them, letting them know, making, increasing awareness about peer jury, and that's something we've got to focus on. We've done it from time to time, and now we really need to redouble our efforts because we've got new chiefs and we've got new youth officers, and those who have showed up for cases recently have been very, very enthusiastic. So we think we can market better, and we need to make an effort to do so, but we just think when you look at the costs and the benefits, that peer jury is a wonderful program and should be given some additional latitude to increase its caseload and to remain viable. But those, I think, would be our recommendations in a general sense. And Stefan, can you add any color in terms of the youth participation at the?
Just when I first got on the board, we had 2 youth members that were non-voting members. And it used to be a real plus for a New Trier resume. Not sure it is so much anymore, but that's why a lot of the kids did it. It was helpful, and I thought that maybe we got, I think it was under Corinne. I don't remember if under Pat we still had it, but it's gone away for a while now. But we did interview kids from the Haven program, their executive board. They came to a meeting, and they were very gung-ho about getting involved in the township. And so we thought with that kind of interest, we should pursue that. And also it's very beneficial for the township because one of our dictates under the statute is to provide services for youth in the township.
Okay. And did you speak with New Trier High School about whether they would take on peer jury?
We did not. I mean, we have to first decide whether we want to relinquish our involvement in control of peer jury.
Well, but if
there's an option.
if there's an option whereby somebody else would take it over. And perhaps because it's within the school context, have more direct access to the students and success. Then it's a consideration as part of this. It's not a chicken and egg.
Right.
Well, the other problem with that is there are kids that come into the program other than from New Trier High School.
Right.
You
Yeah, no
got
doubt.
Virginia, you got North Shore, you got.
Sure,
If you centralize it at New Trier High School.
right.
That may,
No, I'm not saying that we would centralize it anywhere, but I'm just saying if we don't, who does?
okay,
You know, it's a matter of, if we said tomorrow, we're not doing peer jury anymore, then the cops handle it. And, you know, do the schools then fill in and say, well, we gotta do something, you know, if they even decide they want to. So it's a consideration, I think, you know, more than, you know, something that is gonna be a, you know, on-off switch. Can I just ask, when you were talking about Haven and Winnetka, do we know if, and I know that I'm gonna get a chance to kind of ask them some questions, when it comes down to it, but, are they paying for the space that, at, the Indian Hill Field House? Cause if they're thinking, if that's like a temporary zone and they're thinking about trying to rent somewhere else, like that's a consideration, I'm
My
sure.
sense is Haven is not paying for it.
Okay.
We have to find that out.
Yeah.
That'd be one of the things we'll want to review in their proposal.
Right.
But I think they've got a partnership with the Park District, and I think it's gratis.
Okay.
And the Park District still uses that field house for a bunch of other things,
Yeah.
so the hours are not gonna be as liberal as they are
Right,
in Wilmette, where the warming house is, but I think it's a gratis relationship. but we'll
Okay.
find that out.
okay. Cause I live very close to there and there's a lot going on there other than that. So that was just a
Correct.
question I had.
Correct.
And then in terms of Glencoe Youth Services and specifically with respect to middle schoolers. Did you investigate at all what non-Glencoe Youth Services middle school options there are for youth in the township? And, you know, things that, you know, it sounds like there's, you know, a lot of excitement behind kind of, you know, new things for our high schoolers. But, you know, I'm thinking about those who cannot drive and, you know, and are not literally in the same building as, an after-school program.
In Wilmette, actually, where Haven has taken over, most of the attendees are not high schoolers. The high schoolers tend to be more mentoring.
Mhm.
They're there, they love working with the junior high schoolers, but most of the attendees tend to be under high school age.
Okay.
And in Glencoe, that's definitely the case as well.
Mhm.
And we're thinking that in Winnetka, that's gonna be the case too, even though the position is close to the high school.
Mhm.
We're hoping for a nice mix of kids between middle school and high school. I mean, when there's a good age range, some of the older kids can really, and many of them enjoy it.
Mhm.
They like to mentor, they like to help with homework, and they like to, enhance
Can
their
you walk from the
skills.
middle school to that, Indiana?
No, you cannot. It's
Mm.
about 3/4 of a mile and across Green Bay Road
I hope that's a consideration
That's
for
a-
the
yeah.
committee
in terms of
as far as
location.
transportation.
Yeah.
Maybe a shuttle or something. Okay, that's helpful. Okay, so here's what I heard as far as recommendations for youth services and peer jury. Explore Haven Warming House efforts to expand programming into Winnetka to fill the void left when the Yo disbanded. Consider a non-voting youth representative at township meetings, potentially with the help of Warming House's youth leadership.
Could be multiple, could be two representatives.
Consider non-voting representative, parentheses us. Continue to utilize the Citizen Advisory Committee review process to ensure residents receive value from our youth agencies. Continue the peer jury program, given the low cost of administration primarily run by volunteers other than restorative justice coordinator. As compared to a municipal adjudication process or juvenile proceedings, and economies of scale associated with having one peer jury for the community rather than one per school district. And if I could add, encourage the Warming House to open to fifth graders, because our Bill school starts at fifth grade, so it's kind of weird that they open at sixth grade when it doesn't match, right?
Yes, something to talk to Grace about. I don't think that should be a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Plus you also catch them while they're young.
Yep. Does Winnetka do middle school, sixth grade?
No, middle school is 5th and 6th.
Oh.
And then 7th and 8th.
Okay, so we do the same.
Two
thing.
different
Okay.
buildings
Yeah,
across
so-
the field.
Oh, it is.
Oh, so we have the same exact process.
There you go.
Across the field. Okay, encourage all youth programs to open. Yeah, fifth grade. To match. Okay,
And the other recommendation, of course, on the peer jury side of things is to be more proactive in terms of marketing to new police chiefs and to new youth officers.
okay, regularly meet with youth officers.
So I just have a general question. Is this, because I know that, well, at least at Wilmette, I feel like they've got a really good after-school program. So does this just complement or like what are you getting? What's this program capturing? What?
Especially with Haven taking over, it really has become kind of like it's like an informal mental health session, right? You've
Okay.
got social workers there.
Okay, got
It's
it.
the people who aren't joiners often. So they can go play Dungeons and Dragons. They can, do board game night, but they also have like activities that are scheduled.
Okay, so it is different, because yeah,
Yes.
the homework stuff, my son's like, yeah, it's literally, just homework. That's it.
For the homework club.
Yeah,
That's a homework.
it's not like there's like games or anything going on.
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
Yeah,
With people that have like maybe an attention span issue, and they can't just sit and do homework for 4 hours, they might need to go out and shoot some hoops or bake some cookies and then get the homework done in the process. That's where the one.
That would be, wouldn't that be everybody in life? I don't know, I don't have to do it for 4 hours.
Some kids, I just wanna plow through it and get it done, and a lot of kids aren't wired that way.
Right.
mhm. I liked that they had this kind of like adulting 101 classes last year, which was
Yeah.
really cute. So like preparing to launch, if you will.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
how to boil water
Yeah. That's actually good.
without burning your house down.
Right.
I definitely got those text messages during the intergovernmental meeting. Anyway.
One, just in terms of the, it was kind of personnel for a couple of different, things. I know that you guys were talking about, perhaps doing, somebody full-time for food pantry. then, you know, to the degree that we keep peer jury needs somebody for some portion of time, especially if we're gonna be ramping up, kind of marketing efforts. So it is something to consider that we would need some kind of either, it wouldn't be able to be a full-time food pantry person, or we would need an additional, you know, person that could do, you know, theoretically admin and peer jury, you know, something. It's something to keep in mind as we're going through this, and.
Did I hear that food pantry is, maybe a full-time position?
It is,
That's,
It is.
they just, yeah.
Yeah.
well, but also, when we moved, Brian to this role this year, it was meant to be about 30 hours a week. He had asked for Friday off, essentially, which proved untenable. So he's essentially been full-time,
Mhm.
since, gosh,
He basically just leaves at
Yeah,
4,
yeah.
but he
After the
might
90
be in
day,
at like 9:30.
after our 90-day review, he went pretty much back to full-time, other than he leaves earlier since the pantry closes at 4. Yeah. So, and then makes up those hours with weekend, drives. And he's on hourly now. So if you were to make overtime, he would make overtime. But he doesn't. 'Cause he has a-
Sometimes,
It
yeah,
does
when he does food jars, it depends on how
It
many he
can.
has, yeah.
It can, but yeah. Okay. Intergovernmental relations. Kate, can I ask you to go through our recommendations?
No, I didn't teach my notes.
So it's not in parliamentary procedure.
All right, so, oh goodness. So we were, this goes back to what you were mentioning with the surveys that were sent out, that Gail sent out. And we had limited responses. I feel like that's a safe way to say this. And so, you know, the first, you know, concept was, you know, if the purpose of our reporting this is to consolidate groups, what would be lost if the township went away? And, you know, in terms of the villages, Northfield said that they wouldn't provide any services, except they would start providing GA, temporary placard disability, you know, kind of some of the things that we do. Glencoe, you know, some of the volunteer services, you know, the temporary placard disability, drug take back. You know, Kenilworth similarly, they said that they were going to be that they would, in that instance, take on substance abuse and domestic violence prevention. You know, GA, emergency, kind of concepts, wellness fair, paper shredding. But, you know, it seems like, you know, kind of the overarching concept seems to be, how would they be doing this? They would probably be partnering with some of our partner agencies anyway. Where are they gonna get that funding? And so, you know, we kept coming back to, it doesn't really work without, you know, having the township as kind of the glue that holds things together there. We also asked about if the township went away, the responses, sorry. And then one of the things that we did recommend was that post-election, we would want to have some new staff member orientation so that the villages, you know what we do and who they can send to us, and how we can help their folks. In terms of the park districts, libraries, schools, and even the mosquito abatement district. You know, we did, you know, hear that, you know, people would take on some concepts, but not everything. You know, the taxing groups would have to, you know, get together to kind of divide out who's gonna do what. Nobody said that they would take care of a legal aid clinic, mental health, mental illness, employment and housing services, peer jury, emergency financial passport acceptance, home remodeling, for low income and disabled residents, food pantry, transportation, cell phones for seniors, housing resources for seniors, respite care, you know, things of that nature. And so, you know, we feel like all things considered, while there's room for improvement, the township is serving residents well in terms of being a clearinghouse, if you will, for, knowing who to send people to in various situations. And, kind of being, again, that glue that, holds things together. But again, we think that where we can do better is in educating, kind of, going out, marketing ourselves, just like you were talking about marketing, marketing ourselves, to the different, not just agencies, but, our, villages, our park districts, kind of the other, taxing bodies.
Question.
Yeah.
We do have one potentially valuable example of this study. I mean, what, if you really want to sit down and wonder whether our township could, the Evanston model, Evanston abolished their township about 10, 12 years ago, and as I understand it, some really bad things happened. It took a few years for those things to manifest themselves, but I think if anybody were to delve deeply into that, we should study a model or two where townships have been eliminated, and I think the Evanston model could be very helpful to the support of the notion that bad things can happen. They may not be immediately glaring, but that would be one thing that if we ever really, really wanted to study that, I think we should do some research on what happened in Evanston.
Yeah, I live in Evanston and basically the city, I believe, absorbed some of it, but their services are still very lackluster. And then I think they've downsized staff. So, people are, rushing over there. I know they had a mobile DMV over there. But it's not the same as when you have a township office, especially for senior citizens. There's a very high senior citizen population in Evanston. People who have been there forever. My grandmother was in Evanston in her house for like 55 years. And a lot of the senior citizen population is like that there.
There was a bit of an outcry by certain groups, and it may have been seniors in particular, who, once they realized what had happened, they're like, well, what about this? We want to, it's, I would love to study that if we have,
Well, everybody says they won't lower taxes, and then you realize like, oh, that our taxes are actually going to certain things, so.
Hey, how many agencies did you solicit?
Oh, we had dozens,
Everybody, we had, at that first meeting, remember, we went through a list, I think maybe over 30 entities. 14 responded. For some reason, Wilmette really was not feeling it. Blanco's happy. And we had our intern literally call every one of them, because I was like, what's going on? Like, so it's not like we didn't try.
But the honest answer is if I'm in Wilmette and you call me, it's like, well, who among us can speak for what we would keep and what we wouldn't?
Right.
No, we sent it to Bremen, we said, we were sending it to either their communications person to get to the right person, or, and it's not abnormal. I get surveys all the time for various things, right? Today was about whether I want farmland to be less incentivized to be fallow. I don't know. We responded, yes. And it's like, does this matter to your government? I was like, no.
Maybe that was a test, somebody was testing.
It was from Stanford. So but I'm like, I want people to respond to mine, I will respond to yours. Okay, great. So we are going to explore an IGA for the use of a van for a food pantry, and it was a double. Offer post-election orientation for elected officials to explain what township does and how do we interact with the various governmental bodies. Have outreach coordinator offer an in-service to each body's staff to describe what the township does and how we interact with their body. So yes, the general theme was, you have no idea what's going on. And if you will,
Other people don't know, what we do. And how
they don't know what we do. So when they were learning about all these things from the survey, essentially. I have included in the packet the summary Excel sheet, as well as the individual responses from each government. I think most notable to review is going to be the park districts and New Trier High School. New Trier High School does say if we were to dissolve, that they would continue to provide court diversion processes. So it doesn't say it says, would you offer peer jury or other court diversion, so it tells me that they have something going on. It's not necessarily a pure jury, but some kind of other station adjustment type of thing.
Now, was this the freshman high school or the senior high school?
Good question. Let's see. It says it was the director of communications who answered for them. So just something to explore as we continue. And then for the park districts, I think what was most notable was regarding drop-in centers. So especially if the Indian Hill Field House is run by the Winnetka Park District, they say they'll continue to provide use drop-ins. So I want to know what they're currently doing. And as we recall, the Wilmette Park District currently highly subsidized Warming House because Warming House essentially gets that building for $1.
Mm.
So while they don't fund them, they're essentially doing them, yeah. So, anyway, that's intergovernmental. Contract expense review.
Yes. So Kylie and I met, thank goodness for Larisha to send out the reminder, because I had forgotten about that. I was so focused with Danielle on the food pantry. And so we spent some time with Larisha and went through the contracts. There's a nice binder. In general, I mean, a couple comments, but I don't know if there's any, this might be a little off topic, but any succession planning for Larisha? Or even just more like, should something happen and she has to go out on disability or, you know, what? Just- She's like, she knows a lot, right?
It's a very good point, considering we literally had that happen 5 years ago when Diane fell down the stairs, so, and was out for months. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right.
We can, well, we're just talking about in my firm too, actually, about like, if we get sick, like who's gonna take care of our clients? It could go to a general fund, but most people don't want their clients to just be taken care of by
Completely.
anybody. So same thing, you know, it's just somebody shadowing her, maybe it is an admin that's part-time, or, I mean, I don't know what that's gonna look like, but it's just a comment and thought. But then back to the contracts, I thought there was a nice binder, of a lot of the contracts. We did try to tie them out and just to the financials, and that's not quite so easy because there's just, you know, a lot of moving parts and things that need to get fixed. But we did say, you know, kind of our overall thought is some of them are verbal. And again, Larisha knows all of this, but some of them are verbal, which can be, you know, a liability issue potentially, and inefficient. And it's just good to have things in writing if you can get them as much as often as possible.
Which contracts are currently verbal?
Oh, no, so Penny Bowes was verbal.
Oh, yeah,
So
that was-
I'm-
They were
yeah,
verbal,
yeah.
okay, but they're not anymore.
Yeah, we got rid of that.
Yeah, Penny
Good.
Bowes was verbal when I came on as administrator.
Okay.
That was a fun realization.
Yeah, like some of our stuff, like Howard Simon, I would say that they have like a blanketed contract that they have with all of their people. Like, it's not fitted to us. It's just what they put out there. It's the master agreement. This is what we give you guys, and basically here it is. HTML Global is the same. I feel like they give us a cost every year, but just like I was telling you guys, it could vary because we may need a new computer, or we may need them to come out and do some extra work in the building.
Right.
And those are not gonna be the costs that we have in budget. We might go over.
I think with IT support, yeah. that's what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
HTML Global,
Yeah,
they
there was some
don't give the
incomplete
most,
contracts.
yeah, they don't give the most in-depth contracts. And when Diane left, Gail and I had to contact them and ask them, what does our contract actually look like? So, it's the closest thing to a contract that we could get. Our services with them sometimes change because if we lose employees or gain employees, we were just talking about mailboxes and stuff today.
Right.
Little stuff that we pay extra for. Gail was suggesting like not naming all of the boxes, just saying supervisor at Township so that we can keep it. We don't have to keep paying So it was like that when I came on, it was administrative assistant at newchurchtownship.com. I was just really insisting that it be my name because I wanted people to know what my name was. If
Right.
I had a complicated name, people will never learn it. So, but in Gail's position, like it would be fine to just keep that, so that we don't have to pay all of these varying things. We were spending out a ton of extra money when I first became administrator for HTML Global because they had to fix so much stuff. The server room was a mess.
Firewall, yeah. there's a
Yeah,
lot of
now we're kind of, with everything now, I feel like we're kind of evening out. The only thing that is the big elephant in the room with that is the building maintenance,
Well,
because,
That leads to my next
Yes.
topic. We talked about that, and I think in general, a good idea, if it's possible, to do some kind of a 10-year strategic plan on what needs to be done, right? And then sort of what are the, in general, expenses to that? Because this is an old building. It's expensive, right? If you're, everybody that lives in the area that has an old home, right? We all know it can be very expensive to maintain. So it's sort of just planning that out. And then what's the best way to attack it, right? And what makes sense. And then something Kyla and I talked about too is just, the excess space, right? I know that you guys have had those conversations about leasing it out. It's an overall conversation to kind of maybe offset the expense for the maintenance. And this is a great area, right? So you feel like somebody would want to rent it out. I don't know who, therapist.
So here's the question on that. So we had been thus far only offering it to nonprofits. So our nonprofit partners can like, hey, who needs it? Thinking like a volunteer center or something that was renting currently in the community center, the
Right.
community house would want to move in.
Right.
No one took us up on it. I just saw that Niles or Northfield. I'm confused. One of them is now opening their extra office space as a co-working space essentially. Right. And for short term, so it'd be like $100 for up to 4 hours or something like that. And being like, we've got internets, we've got printer, coffee.
Where would it, like this room?
For like the former passport office, for instance, use the small conference room. Right now, we give people this room if they're a nonprofit and it's not being used. Right? But if you're for profit, we could charge.
Yeah, I think it's just worth the discussion.
Yeah.
we used to have tons of people coming here before COVID. Cedar was here. Robin Gable's office was here.
But those were partnerships. We were
Yeah,
doing
those were more, partnerships,
Yeah.
but nobody was renting the room.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying is the space was being utilized.
Right.
Prior to COVID.
Right.
So the one thing that I will mention in this is that if we went in that direction, it would require administrative work to handle the calendar of who is where, when, taking payment, that kind of thing. So it's something to consider. It's not something to say,
Right.
don't do it. It's
Right.
just something to consider.
Absolutely.
Who's gonna do it?
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
There's
it's
definitely
more
the
work.
administrative overhead and headaches that had to be sorted out, and with the with the income that we could receive, would it exceed the administrative overhead?
Yeah.
Well, like,
All good.
for instance, for those of us who are lawyers, like we can't use the library for like a deposition, because you can only rent the library room for like an hour or two, right? But we could say you can rent it all day for X dollars, right? And use that room back there.
Some of these back rooms, but I mean, they're traveling back and forth, they don't have separate ingress and egress here.
Right, it would have to be during business hours.
Yeah.
Or if it was a long-term renter, we'd have to give them a key, but.
Right. Yeah. No, there's a lot of headaches, but it's just a thought. And again, Kylie mentioned it too. And then evaluate the vendors, which I know Larisha's on it. She mentioned she's looking at a potentially different auditor, which is not a bad thing. And again, just kind of keeping everybody in check for costs, and service improvements. And then literally the last one was just what I just mentioned, the task force to explore developing a 10-year overall strategy plan. That could be a big one, again, just what we talked about here for like leasing out the excess space. but the headaches that go with it, administrative, you know, so that's probably the biggest one.
So a 10-year strategic plan is what you're suggesting. Yes,
Well, just for like, I don't know what, I mean, I honestly don't know what this building needs. You know, I know you talked about the basement. I mean, there's just, I think there's a lot to be
It's quite
done.
a lot.
So it's just a matter of like kind of laying it out, like what's immediate, what's, you know, does it make sense to be efficient? Also, we also talked about, I didn't put that down, about potentially sharing services with a Niles or a Northfield or wherever, right, with like the cloud computing or, you know, I don't know, does everybody
Oh.
kind of have their own contracts
Oh, interesting.
with all of that? I don't know, I feel like if somebody, if you use the H.
Oh, for the website stuff?
Yeah, or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever, it's just a couple different things where it's like, it could be worth a talk, just to say,
Yeah.
hey, if we're all using you, what kind of discount can we get, or.
Yeah, I think that we use Civic Plus. I want to say that Northfield uses Civic Plus. I know that they use HTML Global.
Yeah, which is
Um,
great.
Yeah, but Gail and I were talking about Civic Plus today because it's very à la carte. Everything is à la carte, à la carte, à la carte.
Right,
So
which
if you
is-
need this little piece, it's more money.
lot,
If you
right.
need this little piece, it's more. So they're very salesy. I was a part of the RFP process 6 years ago when we got the new website vendor. We were with American Eagle before that. I really loved them. They were more personable than Civic Plus is. Civic Plus is a much larger company too. But we decided to go with Civic Plus. Obviously, I've been working with the Civic Plus website for 6 years now. And I'm fine with it. I feel like they have a lot of good things that they offer. It's the cost. It's, you know, every single time we need something, give us another $7,000, give us another 14,000. And before you know it, our budget for the website is crazy because we're also paying a yearly maintenance, or I think we're on a 2-year contract now with them. So that we can kind of keep our costs flatlined.
Right.
But it's still, they're very salesy. They call me all the time and I tell them to stop calling me because we've given you guys a lot of money.
Yeah, well, and that might be worth a discussion,
Yeah.
you know, about, again, if Northfield's using them, just to say, hey, you know.
Yeah, my favorite line is, we're done spending in the budget this year, and that kind of like wards them off.
That's probably don't have in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know, I feel like I'm adding a lot of work, but just a thought.
Oh, you had mentioned community support grants. In your report, I don't remember hearing you guys talk about that. Did you talk to any other townships that have community support grants?
They don't,
No.
we're the only ones. We're the only ones who have a program like that, judging from when I go to my administrator meetings. They don't have, nobody else has a community support grant program or anything like it.
Okay.
So that is one way that we are unique.
So you want me to keep that line in there, so if you're no. Not to
I'd say,
compare.
yeah, I'd say no.
Okay.
Take that out.
Yeah, we have made some really, I think, some great headway this year. So in order to get to community support grants, you always have to certify that you have, your family member has a disability. We've now gone to, if you have received a community support grant in the past, you can now attest that nothing has changed. So you don't have to go out and get another doctor's letter,
Oh, that's good.
documentation. Yeah, similar to how property taxes, now they're saying, hey, if you're a senior, you can stay a senior.
Right.
You don't
Yeah.
have to recertify that you're. a
Every
senior.
year, yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's good.
Yep.
Did anybody else use chat GPT for like their notes, summarizing anything? That's probably how I got in there, because when I typed up all my notes, I'm like, just organize it according to this, and so that's probably why it probably took that and said.
Oh, for community support.
Yeah.
I think because we were talking.
And we
about
were
it.
talking
Yeah.
about it, and I probably took a few notes on it. Went out of it, so it's kind of
Cool.
dangerous, actually. That was
Yes.
Danielle's idea.
And we did have a report done on the building.
Mhm.
So it's not a task force, we did have the report provided to the board. So it provided us like, this is what we need to do in 1 to 2 years, 3 to 4 years, that kind of
Oh,
thing.
so you have
So,
something
but
like
it was a
that.
similar concept where I was like, oh, maybe I should have known that the, what are they up with the roof? No, not the boiler, the other thing. HVAC, but the HVAC was 20 years old, you know, we probably should have known that, right? When it died.
Yeah.
Right? So now we know.
Yeah, we were talking about something that just got taken off on the side of the
Yep.
building, right?
Mhm,
So,
the old
yeah,
mechanical unit.
yeah, it's not, it wasn't being used, it's just,
So do we feel we need a task force in addition to that?
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
one thing to know, and it's another thing to do something about it.
Mhm.
I
right,
know I have a weight problem, I'm not doing anything about it. So, you know. It's, you know, there's, you know,
So
now
however,
that we
yeah.
have that report. We need to make, you know, intentional and measured actions towards fixing the problems.
yeah, if it,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
needed too,
Yeah,
right?
that
And then it's a
formula.
money issue, cause that, you don't want it to sneak up on you and have it be a huge expense that you're not budgeted
I'd
for.
like to hire a general contractor on there because that is one thing. I have people to do the specialized work, but at this point, I don't have anybody to put the flag on the front of the building. I don't have anybody to like come and hang pictures if I need it, you know, like,
What's a handyman? Not a
yeah,
picture.
like a hand, like
Yeah.
a general handyman.
Okay.
Get Dwell calls them like a contractor slash handyman, basically.
Right. Have you used Getswell?
We did years ago, they did the pantry floor.
Nice.
Mhm.
Nice.
Did we use TaskRabbit in the past for some of that? Or was that?
No,
Building together.
Mhm. Um,
We could, again, starting point might be to call the folks at Building Together, one of the agencies we partner with.
oh, that's how we got the building audit done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they can really, if they can't help us directly, they can steer us in the right. direction.
yeah.
all right, so this is what I got from that discussion. Prioritize cross-training and succession planning. Update binder of contract, or continue to update binder of contracts. No more oral agreements, only written contracts, even with longstanding vendors. Implement long-term building maintenance audit plan to plan out major and minor expenses. Explore rental options for underutilized office space. Audit website feature usage, and negotiate a more inclusive price. Explore sharing vendors for IT servers and firewall management.
Yep.
Ensure all contracts are up to date, including services and costs, RFP for the new auditors. Evaluate vendors for potential cost savings and service improvements, hire a handyman. Good, all right. Fabulous. Mhm. Statutory governance. Okay.
Everybody's got their OMA
Yeah.
stuff in. Yeah.
Do you wanna go first, Kate? Because there's two parts to this one. One is Jan's report, and then there's one more under that one.
Oh, cool.
I just created a little doc from our desk, so, but yes,
That's-
yeah, we're now. We're now in compliance with that, so that's great. So thank you for Kate for being, a, very persistent.
Everybody.
Persistence, rather than that. And we're have designated everybody who needs to be designated, so that's wonderful. So we went through the checklist that essentially the township officials of Illinois had created, as far as what we need to ensure that we were currently in compliance with. We do pretty well. But there were a couple of policies that are either required or recommended that we are not able to locate. So the recommendation is them. Oh, hi Jerome. Hi Jerome's iPhone. So we'll just redo them, even though they were likely kept in the past. That's why we'll continue to post all of our policies to the website so that they are easily found. We would also like to and transfer resolution, to ensure that we're properly reviewing our closed meeting session. And our records retention instruction, because if you recall, you have to have like that verbatim record until we say otherwise, and then we can destroy it. So there are,
It's an 18-month, isn't it?
yes, and there's literally a closet full of tapes.
Do we need a sample, resolution or?
I think we can
That
rob
one?
one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cause it's, the Winnetka.
Oh, they do?
Public Library just.
Oh, great.
They've got, I used to do it, so.
I'm gonna suggest that for ease of use, that the current board simply approves all closed sessions to be entered into the public domain. Cause I can't imagine anything is left that needs to stay closed.
Would like to evaluate that.
All right, but that's just my thought. Anyway. So. Schedule, regular biannual reviews of closed meeting minutes for September and March. So just because you have to do it every 6 months, so if we just set it up, that we're always doing it, then that would make sure we don't forget. Formalize social service agency contracts. Right now, we've gone from no contract to my current system, which is a letter contract, where it says, if you stop providing services, you hereby will not be paid. After we saw a couple agencies close in the middle of the year. And so having a more formal contract prior to the first tranche is going to be a positive recommendation. So this one is was not unanimous from our group, designating the township administrator as the primary FOIA officer with the township clerk as the secondary.
What were the concerns?
Who's from your email?
I don't remember. I think it's that Larisha has enough stuff going on
Yeah.
and that, to add one more thing to her plate seems silly.
The concept, why I like it is that the administrator's here full time, that clerk is not. There's a very quick turnaround for FOIA requests. So if we're not picking them up on a daily basis, we could be out of luck and be out of compliance, right? It's like 7 days to respond.
Yeah, 7 to 10.
Yeah. Listen, if we take something off her plate by getting an administrative assistant, then, you know, I think it's reasonable, but I think, you know, we're asking.
Well, here's the reality is that Larisha's doing it anyway.
Well,
Yes,
there are many things I'm
and
doing
that's,
that I could and should be getting help with.
Touche.
But that does not mean,
But Larisha could delegate it to someone like the intern, as long as the intern has FOIA training and you're supervising. You can delegate as the supervisor, you can delegate assignments like that.
what intern?
We,
We have an intern?
We only have an intern during the summer.
We have an intern in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
or you could delegate to Steven if he has FOIA training and he's capable of doing it under your supervision.
To be honest, the FOIA requests are few and far between, thankfully.
That's what I was just gonna ask you, how often?
It's very rare,
But then
especially
the owner is when they come.
when it can be.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw
it's,
recent litigation.
one of the best things about the FOIA is that with so much transparency on the website now, so many of the FOIAs that we used to get in the past are like perfunctory because they just have to go online and look at what we're saying. And by the way, thank you, Gail, because this is what the clerk of Niles Township, he said that the administrator who does almost all the work anyway on the FOIA is the best person to be, and then I can help in a secondary role. It's not like I'm trying to shirk things, but usually it comes in and then I ask Larisha, oh no, what is this information? So thank you for letting me chime in here.
Exactly. So yeah, we used to get one every year for the salaries of everybody, and now we have that online, right? Now we get
That's
one every
actually-
year for Pitney Bowles' contract, and that's why we found out we didn't have one. Like, yeah. So yeah, it's really helped to have everything online. So would you say like 3 times, 4 times a year?
We normally get some after the annual town meeting
Yeah.
or, sometimes we've been getting some from like competitors of Pitney Bowes.
That's the favorite, yeah. That's why, that's why they asked for the Pitney Bowes contract, so they
Yeah.
could undercut it. So,
Oh,
yeah, that's fun,
Wow.
right? I just use it for litigation reasons. So yes, so if there were to be a request like these, that was just litigated from the high school, which was essentially everything regarding X occurrence in, 10 people's email boxes, right? That would be a little bit more work, right? And we only have so many people, so it's not like we have to have some sort of ESI vendor or something, So,
We've also heard anecdotally that there is a group that is going around and starting to, I'm not gonna say harass, but has started to intentionally ask all taxing bodies in Illinois for, FOIA requests for things, and it's a very lengthy list, and it's been an arduous process for those taxing entities that have had to go through this. And so it's, it's not always one contract is the issue. I
true.
think.
And there is a list of items that have to be readily available for FOIA requesters. So after our statutory governance review committee meeting, we did go through and add all of those to the website and also in a little blue folder. So it's right by the mailboxes. So if anybody comes in looking for any of those documents that's on the statutorily required list, we have them ready. So,
Very good.
right. So it was fun. Okay, what was else? Oh yeah, that was the FOIA officer. Encourage all township elected officials to participate in the Wilmette intergovernmental orientation after the election cycle.
I don't think I know anything about that.
I just added that one. So this was the first intergovernmental committee meeting, so for Wilmette, so remember, there's now been 3 years of this. That was the proposal that came out of that, so I'm just adding it to here. Was to have one orientation, so 2 years ago, we weren't up for reelection, townships weren't up, but the library, they all had new people. So they did do a first time an intergovernmental orientation where they just went through FOIA and OMA and part of the budget procedure. It was lovely. I went, it was fun. So yeah, it was at the library. Yeah. And it was nice to kind of meet some of the other governmental officials as well. All right, so this one was the one that we tried to do at the annual meeting. Township board resolution, propose an annual town meeting resolution delegating authority to the township to purchase, sell, or lease property for 12 months in case of an emergency. And that one was Ross's recommendation. We did not
We need
pass
Ross
it.
in that room.
We need Ross in the room to explain it, but essentially, if we had another fire, we need to have the authority to lease property, right? So that we can go somewhere else. We were lucky that the police department let us use their community room, but what if we needed to actually rent property? I know Jan wanted to rent a space.
Well, I didn't want to. I mean, I figured if we didn't have, electronic communication and we opened for appeals, we had to have it.
Exactly. So
And
we
did
theoretically
look
didn't
around, and
have,
That's how we got to the police station.
Yeah.
Because Len called and they said, oh, we have a room and we're not using it in June and you can have it.
yeah,
Well,
which was
you're
great,
in.
yes.
Yeah.
But theoretically, we wouldn't have had the
Yeah.
authority to enter into a lease.
Right, and it was free.
Yeah,
And they were kind enough to extend it to if they weren't using it, we could go ahead, the township could go ahead and hold, meetings there too until we could get back in the building.
yep.
So, I mean, they were terrific.
Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why we need authority from the voters. Why can't we do that internally?
Aha. I'm glad you asked. So
or figure out a way how to do it internally.
Yes, because townships, most governments that are not home rule are creations of statute, right? Townships are fun in that they are creations of the electors. So that's why we have that annual town meeting every year. Because the electors are the ones who can give us all these various powers. So if you go through the township code and you're like, I would really like a library for my township, they can give us the power to have a library, right? If they want to give me the power to fine people up to $25, they can.
But, I mean,
So
we have
we
the
have
power,
a constable.
we have the power to issue significant scholarships to, but yet we don't have the power to lease a space if we have an emergency. It doesn't.
I didn't make the township code. So, yes.
But, okay, so if we're going to do that, I mean, how would we go about, we would have to, of course, put that on the agenda and send something out. Maybe in the communicator, in the issue before the township meeting, so it's very clear and.
The problem is that you theoretically have to do it every year, so it just seems like such a boring thing to spend real estate on in the Courier. I think it's better to have Ross just stand up and explain why we're doing it.
If he can do it succinctly, not scaring people, because we all got a little nervous, like, what is this? Like,
Yeah,
Well, somebody in the audience said,
what are you
we
doing?
hear that the township building is going to be sold.
Yeah,
That's it with
yes,
me.
exactly.
So it started a whole thing,
Yeah,
got it.
exactly.
Yeah, yep, that would be an issue. No, we don't have debt on the building, so nope.
That's what started the whole.
Interesting, got it. So yes, having him be there is important. Alright. And then the last one was the auditor. Put on an RFP for auditor, so everyone we can double that one. Alright, Jan, I know you had separate assessor.
I did, and I just sent it out. It's not, there aren't any recommendations in it. As I was putting it together, the thing that always occurs to me is what other ways can I get out information to people that we, what it is we do. The first question that we always get asked or complaint that we always get is, of course, my taxes are too high. Well, once you get a bill, you pay the bill. You don't call up your credit card company or your utility company and say, gee, I don't want to pay this bill because I spent more on electricity than I wanted to. You just have to pay the bill, and then you can figure out if there's some way you can bring down the cost of your electric bill. And so when somebody has a tax bill, it's kind of late to say, what can I do about it? Nothing. You can't do a darn thing about it. You can pay it. But what you can do in the future is, and here's how we can help. But I always feel like so much of it is rearguard action, and I don't know how to be more proactive about it than to say, in print at every opportunity, we can help, which is what we do. And just sort of if anybody has any, literal places where, where we can put out information ahead of time. It's with 2 places to appeal every year. The Board of Review is, let's say that they try a lot harder to let us know when we're going to be open. But this year I got a call, or an email from somebody on Saturday afternoon saying he had just heard from the clerk that we were opening on Monday. The assessor sends out the notices in the mail one night. We get notified the next morning that they have gone out in the mail and we are open, but the data won't be available until noon. Now, if all the data went out in the mail the day before, it's available. They can't mail it out if it's not posted somewhere. It's in their system, but they don't give it to us.
So thinking about other places.
Yes.
Where and other ways that you could be getting this message out. Have you talked to the libraries in the district? Have you talked?
That's
to
the one thing I thought of is just but that's just like posting something.
Well, but they have, all of these places have newsletters. They have, their own social media, just because, we've been using our social media to amplify other people's messages. They could be doing the same for us. So, there could be some reciprocity there, but yeah, posting, to the degree that, you're, that we're thinking about how can we do better? What else could we be doing? I think that libraries are often where, people go, not everybody knows, we know, but not everybody knows about what the township does and what the assessment
Exactly,
office
and
does.
we're right in
People
there
go
with
to
that.
to the library about, to try and figure this stuff out, so that
Yeah,
might be a good place.
I will talk to people in libraries.
And I think you guys have done a really good job on communication as far as sending out the blasts, yeah, the emails,
Yeah, we do, but again, it's just that, I mean, I don't know how many people are signed up for,
for the ETS.
for the dispatch and everything.
Oh, Melanie could tell us. She's got-
Exactly, but I mean, and that's part of it. We have started just putting people on the web, not putting people on our list to receive information, telling them we're doing it because they have to approve it. But saying, why don't I just go ahead and do that for you, then you get a notice that says, check it off, that's so then you'll get the notices from the assessor's office.
Mhm.
But short of that, people call all the time and say, I didn't know you did that.
It's all about marketing. That's the
Exactly.
common thing year after year that, we just, how do we market the township and what the township does better? And, there's so much noise out there. We're competing. It's just hard to
Right,
get
yeah.
through to people.
Have you thought about reaching out to realtors?
Yes, and we do that to some extent, and I want to formalize it, so we just closed at the beginning of the month. And then I had, with this coming up, I thought now toward the end of the year, yes, I want to get like some formal, and it's becoming more important, because, what we're noticing with some of the high-end sales, for instance, for older people, even though they have a substantial investment in their home, they're on the freeze.
Something just came to me, and I don't know if anyone's thought about it before. What does everybody get every year that pertains directly to taxes? They get this tax bill. Is there any way that at the time that tax bill goes out, it could have a flyer about what New Trier Township does, just
It's
within the
different
township?
people.
No, but could we impose upon the county? Could we go?
No.
Oh, listen, but that's the one way that I just got this
Yeah.
tax bill, and here in my envelope is a flyer showing the service available in my township.
Yes, not gonna happen. But good, good idea.
It would be,
Yeah.
but
I do like the real estate
we have to
idea.
have Maria Pappas say yes.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
But we need to.
You could tell Maria Pappas that she had a great idea, and then she might do it.
Now, are they not gonna do it because that would maybe put a dent in their coffers?
It's just
No,
so
no.
complicated. I'm impressed that they got them out this time, right? Like that we had,
Oh.
remember we had a couple, 2 years ago, they didn't? So let's not,
They've got their own
we need to
administrative.
get them out. But one other question, Jan,
That's right, everybody would want one.
do the villages still do a welcome basket when you move in?
I don't know whether there's ever villages do it or not.
I didn't use my noodle certificate in time and I was sad. Anyway.
What if we could
But yeah,
synchronize?
But putting that
Find out
in,
now.
right, you're a new homeowner, sign up for the dispatch and, you just
Right.
bought your house, make sure you're not assessed over your.
People
Is there
Yeah.
any way we could synchronize a mass mailing with the timing of the tax bill? So that the same day you get that bill, that very important piece of mail, you're also getting a piece of mail that says on the envelope, read this, cause we,
Well, Sharon does send out an email at that moment.
Well,
once
I'm
we
talking
have-
about email, I'm talking about something in
Yeah.
your mailbox right at the same time.
And that would be terribly expensive
It'd
if
be
you
terribly expensive.
Because it'd be a last minute, yeah.
And if it's, and
It'd be
I
hard.
know, for instance, my son-in-law, I have daughter and son-in-law just in Winnetka, and I said, so what do you do with, all the mail you get? And he said, unless it's a bill to pay from somebody we know, we generally throw it out, we don't have time to read it.
What goes
Yeah.
inside
He
the
said,
whole bag.
exactly, and he said, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't know about anything that was going on in the township, but since where you are, we now look at the newsletter when it comes out, but until that, they did not.
Legislatively, but down in Springfield, if Springfield said to all the counties that when you send out your tax bill, you have to provide a relief statement so they know what the option is. Maybe this is, should be the focus to back some legislation,
Legislation,
I will add that.
yeah.
because that is the one way we can break
And
through.
well, and we're meeting on Friday, I will be happy to bring the idea up and see what the people in the Township Association.
So about ways to county tax rate, there are none within the
Yeah, you
board.
need, maybe you need to hire
So
two or
it's still
three
a
people.
separated into townships for purposes
Everybody
of
will.
assessment, but not, they don't have the same you know, they have the all ribbons and stuff.
Alder, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
So,
so
like,
like. Going for all this stuff.
Yeah, whenever I see like Samantha Steele will post, you know, she'll say Rogers Park Township is open. So theoretically, there is a township. It just doesn't really, it doesn't exist as a separate entity.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a geographical designation for convenience of literally of assessment and mailing purposes, so they can have the same standards applied in the city to, you know, to size and types of units and all that. So, but it's fake, where there's Lakeview and Hyde Park and
Okay.
there are about 8 of them, I think, 8 different geographical designations in the city that.
All right, we have one more,
Not in Trier High School.
two more, sorry.
Yeah.
One more thing, I don't know how realistic this
Thank you,
is.
these are great ideas, I appreciate
We
that.
were talking about this for the food pantry, but have we ever done text blasts? Is that a
I didn't
possibility?
even know what that was. Oh, text blast. I thought you
Yes,
said text splash.
No, 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 I thought that was something new, no.
Okay, text blasts. Yeah.
We have not.
I get emails all the time about mobile apps and text combo, but it's always seemed very expensive. But maybe I'll let someone try to pitch me.
Because I feel like everyone is on their phones. I think
Yeah.
we all check.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I agree. I feel like that would be.
Yeah.
I like that.
So we were, we have been talking about it for text blast for what the food pantry needs. Like this week, this is, everyone who signs up. And it would be another great use to, get a text blast.
Interesting.
So what is it? I mean, what is it that the dispatch is not already doing?
Well, so like, I read the dispatch probably more than most people, but oftentimes I don't open it,
It's a
right?
lot.
It's a lot, right? So if I see some, things might go into, you have the priority email box and you have the non-priority email box, like, so this is just another way for you to get the information.
You're
Yeah.
getting a text.
You're getting a text as opposed to,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
It's
And the
more
blast
concise.
goes to-
Yeah.
To everybody all at once, rather than
Right.
individual.
Right. Like, I'm trying to find an example, but
Well, it's a lot shorter.
I just got a text saying, sign up for you.
Unless you're the.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to begin looking into how to do it.
Well, that would be something we would.
Yeah, I was gonna say Melanie can help you.
The Civic Plus has
Yeah,
feature.
Civic Plus has the capability, it's just a mass notification.
And how much?
Is it an additional or?
I will have to look into that with them. It's under our civic, like our notify me kind of
Okay.
umbrella. So I would have to talk to them about it, but I know when we have meetings leading up to our redesign on the website, they were telling me about, do we wanna do text message notifications, so.
Got it.
The more I think about it, I love the idea of the bill itself, the enemy bill itself. Has a black box warning on it, this is your local ombudsman. These are the people you go to if you have an issue with this bill. If the state would get involved and make each county do that, that could be a breakthrough.
I'm telling you, stop crashing.
Yeah,
It's the common sense things, because there are people who call here every day, I don't know where I'm supposed to vote. I'm not supposed to change my address on my voter registration, I mean, there are people who literally.
but that is sent to them in mail.
It is, it's just reiterating the.
Over and over and over
It's kind of like.
Yes.
Another thing that we could do too, very similar, we've done it in the past, but if that's changing everything and the whole office could be in on something like that is have a cheat sheet, on the bulletin board, a box, for people to pick up township services, including the assessor services, grab one on your way out. I know, that kind of thing, I don't know that we have anything like that.
We have in the past, because I've seen.
Exactly, we have in the past, so
There
let's
is-
do it again, let's make it a regular feature.
True. All right, non-for-profit review.
Sure. Um, we send out emails to approximately 34, 35 partners. About 5 of them didn't have an actual email address for the chief executive, but we sent it to their comment. In any case, we got maybe 10 responses, I'd say, all of which were useless but laudatory. And we all said, the township is doing, well, quite sure, I really are. And these are the most substantive ones. Otherwise, they really just said.
Good job. Please want me next year.
We phrased this to elicit, what can we improve? What would make things better, et cetera? I, once or maybe 4 times, somebody came back to me and said, what is it that you're specifically looking for? And I said, it's a fishing expedition. We're not specific. It's you tell us. And again, I got back, you're doing a great job. So, I don't think there's much, I hear, there's one tiny substantive thing. We really appreciate the move to digital submissions. Additionally, the presentation form is super efficient. That was, this is from,
The application.
the North Suburban, right,
Yeah.
this is from the North Suburban Legal Aid
We
Clinic.
have improved that.
And so. I mean,
Still could use some
we're doing wonderfully in a very non-specific way.
Okay.
But nobody knows what we do.
Well,
They
they know very well.
They know what we
They
do,
know very well.
they do know.
But, right, enough of that. That's our report.
Okay. So no recommendations?
Just keep it quiet, no.
Keep it up.
Keep
Yeah,
doing
keep
what
it
we're
up.
doing.
Keep it up.
Should I say continue to simplify the form or?
Yes, which Steven's definitely working on that.
And there are some issues with Adobe, notwithstanding how much money we're paying for it. In that the text boxes do not all expand, for lack of a better way to say it. And so when the committee members are receiving PDFs, they're often getting cut off in the middle of a response.
Yes.
So that, I don't, it's by the grace of God, I can turn this thing on. So I don't know how to fix that, if that is something that can be fixable within Adobe, or if it means that we need to go to a different program. I don't know what it is. Steve knows about it, because I was in the thing with him last night. And everybody was kind of hollering about it.
Our committee had the same thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good points. Great. All right. Anything on the structure, the 3 committees? People seem happy? All right.
And again, it was a very open-ended question, what can we improve, what would make our life easier, et cetera. I think they all understood that, they really didn't have anything to say.
All right, fabulous. Staffing review.
Well, focusing on passports,
Yeah,
But this, if we just talk about passports, we think this is the tidiest maybe of all the issues in front of us tonight. Larisha and I kind of feel that a study needs to be done in a little more detail, but if passports on its own can be a profit center, in other words, can pay its own keep, we think a part-time person might be able to be assigned to that job. But right now, passports are on schedule for about 30 to 33,000 in this year. And if we determined that 1,000 hours was sufficient to get the present load accomplished and maybe grow the program, you could pay somebody about $25 an hour. 25 times 1,000 is 25,000. We'd have to pay our share of Social Security and Medicare, but we'd still be within the revenue generated. We think the overhead is very, very low for the paper, the photographs, the film, and so on. the issues are this. Can we grow passports even more? And that means like, are we doing a good job? Are we doing better than the post office? Are we doing better than the private passport services? We need to study that, because if we're really doing wonderful work in terms of our competency, in terms of our speed of processing, in terms of customer satisfaction, and we're better than the other competitors that provide passport services, we could potentially grow the program and cover the full cost of the part-time person to do the work. Larisha points out, because she's in the trench and she's done it before, that it can be a very seasonable type thing. There could be some weeks where very few people are in, and other weeks where there's a lot of people in. But again, if it can be a self-sustaining branch of government where it pays for its keep and then maybe even has a little profit, it would make sense to hire a part-time person. But we gotta make sure that what we do, we're best in class, or we can get the best in class. We gotta make sure there's room to market it and grow it a little bit. And now Gail, if we had a part-time person at 1,000 hours a year, would we have to pay benefits?
No,
Okay.
our policy says 30 hours or more, which is based on how the insurance companies, decide who can get benefits. We would, however, have to pay PTO under the new Illinois law.
So PTO, our share of social, our share of Medicare. So this is a real tiny little subject. It needs to be studied in a little more detail, but I think Larisha and I both believe that if it can pay for its keep, if it can pay without digging into other funds, then it makes perfect sense to free up the other people who are doing passport. And then this also assumes that we have room in the building to house a part-time passport person.
Elliot, can I ask you a question? Would we consider, because I know we keep talking about a part-time assistant for Larisha, could we have one person who works full-time? Part-time, they do passports, and then part-time, they're assistant to Larisha. Would that make sense?
So essentially Larisha's old job.
Yeah.
It could make a lot of sense, and if that passport revenue could be marketed to the point where it covers that whole salary,
Mhm.
then it's a win-win. I mean, this is not insignificant chump change anymore, we're up to $33,000 a year
But
and
it's-
growing.
But 33,000 is not gonna cover a person.
Right. Well, 33,000 will cover that half of the person's work, I mean, that's $25 an hour for 1,000 hours.
But it supplements our work as well, right? Like, tell
So
me,
for passports, we charge the execution fee, which is $35. This is where all the revenue is coming from.
Right.
We charge $15 for the photos. We charge them $27 that we would have paid, what we pay out to Pitney Bowes for the expedited fees. Clients are also paying us that back, which is why I told you that overhead was pretty low,
It's pretty low.
know?
The operating
Um,
expenses are very low. The
yeah.
big operating expense is the time for the person,
Yeah,
whoever administration or.
so it's $50 per.
essentially, like if I get my passport executed plus a photo, that's $50. It's 77 if I get it expedited, right?
But that
That's
doesn't go
all,
up, yeah.
right, that's all getting kicked back to us because that's what we're charging the client.
Bottom line is that the revenue is growing significantly enough that it warrants study. $33,000 a year, it's not hay, it's revenue. And if that revenue will cover a part-time person or a full-time person's allocation of work to the passport service, then it could be a no-brainer.
Are we legally allowed to have a contractor in that role?
No, that person has to be an employee of the township.
Bias?
Which is what took me so long. It took me roughly, I temped here for 8 months, so I couldn't become a passport agent until I became a full-time employee. Now, the thing is that now Steve has me to fall back on. When I was the passport agent, I was really pushing to get somebody else because there was only me. We are currently doing passports Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 9 times out of 10, we're gonna fill those slots. Some people are like double bookers, that's gonna happen. But what I was talking to Gail about earlier is I'm 1000% getting somebody, but I'm also 1000% that most of the townships, everybody knows how to do passports. And when we're talking about like succession planning, if Steve and I are not here, nobody knows what's going on with passports. Everybody needs to be educated about the forms, which I've been trying to do. How to direct people to apply. But, in Melanie's role, honestly, Melanie could do passports. And I think we need to be starting to have a conversation about that as well, because everybody's job here is two-pronged, you know, or like 17-pronged in my case, right?
Right.
It's the staff having the knowledge because we're such a small staff. And not if somebody's not here saying, oh, well, we don't know, you know, that's one thing that we've really been pushing towards, like pushing the knowledge, in that if the staff can do something extra, then they should be doing it. And in Brian's role, when we replaced Brian, I just really rather out the gate train that person how to do better for us.
But given the complexity of the big issues you work on, you're creating more value for the township when we're not having you spin your wheels doing passports. That's a
Yeah,
little bit
so
more.
I don't do passports, unless, you know, Steve is not here, or those things have been like previously booked, or if Steve were to get sick. I don't do passports, or if Steve has like a family of 5 to 8 and they need photos or something, I'll jump in and help him. But passports is completely off of my plate as of right now.
Users and revenue are growing because you guys are doing a great job.
Yeah,
The word is out that this is a great place to get. a
people
business.
do love coming here for passports.
So bottom line is, with the increase in revenue growth, it's worth, I guess our recommendation is that it's worth studying whether this can pay for its own person. That's the bottom line. But-
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other recommendations from staffing?
It's late, I don't wanna get too heavy at this point, but we also need to consider the pantry as far as staffing, because Brian isn't here forever. And I've talked to Larissa about this at pretty great length. That's another place where if we had a part-time person or a full-time person, that would be another area which they could be of assistance to us. Because we talked about it, and once Brian goes, I think that the pantry can be very much up in the air. So that's something I wanna do prospectively, and consider somebody as an additional person, or a person who's now doing 3 jobs, we've delineated tonight. But I think it needs to be under consideration as well.
Yeah.
Gail?
Yes.
I talked to everybody but Melanie, all the staff, about, in general, what with it internally in the building, in the office itself, what would help the most. And Brian and Jean and Stephen and Larisha all said another pair of hands. And especially these 3 months, as we go into the end of the year with community support grants and the whole funding process and the agency applications and all the meetings. And, you know, the holiday giveaways and stuff like that. Literally another pair of hands. So, you know, permanent part-time with a whole slew of the list of miscellaneous activities, functions that could be put, you know, on the plate of that person, and they're the cross-trained person. So they could handle anything, the minimal functions. I know how to get that application off the computer for you. And you can bring it back, you know, I can't help you fill it out, but if you need to come back, you know, come on back. Somebody will take care of you, but I can help you get it going because you don't know how to get it off the computer.
I
Whatever.
have the administrative assistant recommendation on here if it will vote on for next month. We have a contract hire line and we're not using it, so, yeah. And people, I mean, when Steve has needed extra hands, he's used it to get, you know, someone to write up the minutes for the agency meetings. You know, we have it there, so I just don't understand why, you know, having another person with benefits, with PTO, with the complications of all of that, with having to train them, when it seems to be discrete issues, when we can hire someone as needed.
But didn't Larissa just say you can't do that?
For passports.
For passports.
Oh, for passports,
Just
yeah.
passports?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
So it also sounds like we need to look at the existing workloads of our existing staff. And see, you know, if there's anybody who is being underutilized. That, you know, we could
Absolutely.
I doubt that.
adjust.
I do think on times when courier and annual meeting and, you know, all those major things are going on. When those aren't going on, I think Melanie could take on some passports. So,
But passports is, it's a lovely problem to have. Keep in mind that if you wanted to hire a full-time person at 65,000 a year. And that person, half of what that person's gonna do is all the passport work. You've got half that salary covered already, and if that other half of their time, they end up filling in capably on all the overages that is needed, that could be a really good thing. I mean, that revenue generated by passports is a nice tool to work with, especially if they can grow the passport business, market it a little bit. And get it up to maybe 45 or 50,000 a year coming in passports.
And Elliot, imagine every resident says, I can go to my township and get a passport, and it's not just once, I mean, not that it's not a lot now, but that I can go anytime of any day. That would be
Especially if we're,
great service.
we're best in class, the post office is horrible. They
but
hate
it's
doing
just your first passport and children's renewal, right?
Yes,
You
so
can,
now you
yeah.
can do your adult passport online. We don't process DS-82s anyway. Because there's nothing for us to sign on it or execute, so now you can do your DS-82 online. But first time passport, we have a lot of nationalized residents who come and get their first time passport. Especially when they do the large ceremonies for naturalization, we get a lot of them. And children who have never had a passport, or they're at that 5-year gap that they need to renew.
You guys are, I remember when passports was like $6,000 or $8,000 a year, and you still had to have all the training and all the know-how. Now it's 33 and
Yeah.
growing. So it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, and we've made some really good inroads on that with the online registration, like being able, you know, it's making progress. I think that's gives us the capacity to increase it.
That just became permanent literally last week for people to be able to do it online.
Yeah.
Only because we're talking about staffing, and, you know, I know that there is, a fine touch that needs to be done with this and obviously, legality. But I was under the impression that Brian was retiring.
Yes,
When?
for the next fiscal.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought that that was like a while ago.
He stepped back,
But then he stepped up.
then he stepped back up.
Okay.
I mean, it's still down from what he was. Significantly.
Okay, so yeah, so that's just, it's another, as we are considering staffing, that is something, you know, and we've, like, all of the different groups have been saying this, that, you know, we've got to figure out kind of the peer jury aspects of his work and the food pantry aspects of his work and who's gonna be taking that over and, you know, like, that's a pretty major, you know, he's been here for a long time, he's got a lot of institutional knowledge, it's been passed on to Steve, Steve's running with that ball. But, you know, there is, you know, a lot that he has been taking care of that needs to be addressed here.
All right. There's all of our working groups.
We are concerned about you, Gail. Do you have your report more or less written?
Yeah, for the most part.
Oh, good. It seemed like such an ominous thing just a few days ago.
I mean, yeah, don't on this, but it's currently at 25 pages.
Oh, okay.
So. Yeah, I mean,
It's just a simple.
yeah.
Every municipal entity should do as well as your report.
Well, and part of it, you know, some of it's, you know, when I was having fun looking through the census, I entered whatever I thought was interesting about our township and where I think we're going, right? So that kind of stuff. Okay. Seeing nothing else on our agenda, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Oh.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.